Spotify paid what is rumored, he hasn't said it, Spotify paid around about 100 mil for Joe Rogan and increased their market cap by 5 billion.
How do you listen to Spotify? An Apple device. So like they don't care. It doesn't really matter what Spotify do. Like if they get Joe Rogan, like, oh, brilliant.
Cool.
And when you're making 10 billion in AirPod sales.
So you're listening to Joe Rogan on Spotify on your Apple iPhone with your Apple AirPods. So they're just
thinking, fuck, Apple have really missed an opportunity here. Like
Jonny and Yusef from propanefitness.com. What's happening?
What is happening?
You well?
Very good. We've had an extended sound check.
you guys
crispy now.
You guys started shouting limericks at me down the line. It was very interesting.
It's just because I am not the pheasant plucker. I'm only his mate, and I'm standing in for the pheasant plucker because the pheasant plucker's late.
It was so good. I had no idea that was what you were going to sound check. I just asked you to count to 5. That's like getting a 6-nugget chicken nugget meal and finding out that there's 7 nuggets in it. That's exactly what that's like.
Okay, how do you feel about, when you have like a pack of Monster Munch? This is a very like year 5 problem. And then at the bottom, you've got a ball of just pure seasoning.
Oh, I don't remember that. I don't think that happened.
That never happened to you. Surely.
Sometimes you get it with like a Cornetto or a Flake 99.
The chocolate, just pure chocolate.
Yeah, when it's overfilled with chocolate, you're like...
That's something else. Well, what's another good one is when you used to have iced gems, and then at the bottom corner of the little iced gem packet, there would just be some gems. Some iced. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Those a little biscuit with a little swirly thing.
Iced gems are legit.
Do you ever think like, why would you ever stop making that?
I don't think they have. I think
they have
just
the chocolate
stopped eating
one as
them.
Well.
I've never seen them. Yeah, the chocolate one. Yeah.
How much time do you spend in the confectionery aisle, though?
More time than you probably expect.
Really? You don't have a massive sweet tooth?
I do. Well,
do you just not indulge it when we're out for dinner?
There's a really good picture of Johnny's meal from a few years ago that we have on Instagram, which was him at the end of the day realizing that he's got a certain ratio of macros to make up and couldn't make it up through normal means. And so it's what looks like a pot of yogurt with jelly tots in. But in fact, the perspective is wrong, and it's actually a kilo of yogurt with a multi-bag of fruit pastels in it.
Is it not the double... Well, did you not used to do stuff with double-deckers as well?
Yeah, the double-decker, yeah.
Jonny, can you give me another, just a tiny little twist on your gain, bro? Just a little bit. Seth's moved his mic in, so he's a little bit louder. Anyway, we are after that 2-minute intro, we are doing another catch-up episode, just catching the fudge up, finding out what's been going on. Number 1 on the list, the biggest news in the world, apart from the pandemic that's running right outside, Joe Rogan moving to Spotify. So anybody who doesn't know what's gone on, Joe Rogan has signed an exclusive multi-year deal, probably 3 or 4 years with Spotify. The rumored amount was 100 mil. Now, I don't know if that's 100 mil a year or 100 mil total, but either way, it's a significant amount of money. It's the largest amount of money that a podcast has ever been paid for a platform exclusive. And I think that there's probably quite a lot of implications for what's going on here. So I'll give you a little bit of background. Rogan announces that he's moving the entire podcast to Spotify. Every old episode will remain on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever else you tune in. But from the end of the year, it will be new episodes will only exist on Spotify, and Spotify are going to create a video platform exclusive, create a video hosting platform in the
just
app.
For Joe.
Well, I'm presuming they will roll it out thereafter. But on Apple Podcasts at the moment, you can actually create video podcasts. Brian Rose breakdancing in the stairwell.
They've had that for a while. We did it ages ago, but it rams your allowance,
your storage up, on your hosting platform. So yeah, Spotify say that they're going to do that. All of Rogan's old stuff, but this means no more YouTube. It means no more Apple Podcasts. He will continue to upload some clips to YouTube on the JRE Clips channel, which is good, I guess, for him, for the searchability, virality, people discovering the podcast. But full episodes, the only place that you can get them for presumably the next couple of years at the very least, is going to be Spotify. That's audio and video. And then he announced that the Spotify share price closed 8% up that night, and then the next day did another 10%. So Spotify paid what is rumored, he hasn't said it, Spotify paid around about 100 mil for Joe Rogan and increased their market cap by 5 billion. So that's a 5,000 times return. 5,000?
Pretty good move. 500.
500.
No.
50.
Yeah. Oh my God. 100 million.
It's best
50.
to not. Best to not.
Whatever. Well, it's because it's America million and UK billion as well, right? Because
there's imperial measurements, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. How many is it? Can you tell me that in old money, please?
What is it in stone?
Yeah, it's 17 pounds and 4 ounces. So, Rogan's made this move, 100 million to increase your market cap by 5 billion. No matter how many times that is, I know that's a good deal. Some of the other interesting things, Spotify pledged to spend 500 mil on podcast acquisitions during 2020. Now, a big chunk of that's gone on Rogan, but I don't know whether you guys know that they bought Anchor last year.
Anchor lever without you.
I anchor lever it. I anchor lever it.
You mean Anchor like the butter manufacturer?
Yes, and them. They bought every business that has the name Anchor. Now,
what is Anchor?
So Anchor is a podcast hosting platform. It's one of these new ones. So are you guys still on Libsyn? No, you're on Blueberry.
We're all over the place.
The better podcast platform.
The one that no one uses that always breaks on you.
The one that all of WordPress uses that's never broken.
That's a lie. Don't lie. Anyway, so it's similar to that, but there's this new wave of podcast hosting platform like Anchor, and what they allow you to do is actually create and edit your podcasts in the web app. So it's like GarageBand integrated into, so you upload your single file, you can clip stuff, you can add in intros, outros, upload your media library and stuff like that.
See, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit for that, and it's mad that it's taken this long, given where we are in the curve of podcasts, for something like that to come along. And I think there's a lot of stuff related to the Spotify Joe Rogan takeover that has pointed out like how many gaps there are in like really obvious gaps that you could easily take over.
I've got some cool stuff for you guys to think about, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this. And also everybody that's listening, I want to hear what you think. This is a big move. We are, myself, Jonny and Yusef, are very interested in terms of both creators and consumers in the podcasting space. So it's like, it is the biggest news that's probably going to happen for quite a while. Patrick Bet-Davies from Valuetainment reckons that within the next 5 years, we'll see a $1 billion podcaster deal, which probably doesn't seem too ridiculous considering that Rogan's already managed to get 100 million for his deal. So yeah, what you get with these sorts of hosting platforms like Anchor FM, so to not get too sort of nerdy into it, currently what most podcasts use is the RSS feed. So you upload a file and then that distributes to wherever you're listening to this. So it distributes to Apple Podcasts and Stitcher, and Spotify actually is one of those. But the way that it works is it has a single file which is hosted, which is unmovable and unchanging, and then that gets sent out. It's syndicated to all of these different platforms, right? They're just a glorified RSS reader. What Spotify is intending on doing now that it's got Anchor as this Anchor lever, now that it's got that as its creation platform, they have started to introduce dynamically targeted ads mid-roll during podcasts. So if you ever listen to True Geordie, this is what I fucking hate. And this is a big implication for people that listen to podcasts, right? Listen to True Geordie, and halfway through, there'll just be an advert for W.H. Smith's read by some fella, like studio quality, like... Have you subscribed to your most recent edition of Gardening World? Well, why don't you head over to WH Smith's today and get £5 off with the code TrueGeordie?
So
man,
so this
fuck
is
mid-roll podcasts.
Spotify that just can interrupt anyone's podcast and put in their own advert.
No, technically no. So what will happen, and this is what I think will happen with Rogan. Rogan was making somewhere between, not including YouTube ad revenue, he was making somewhere between 50 grand and 150 grand per episode based on his CPM. He does about 150 million downloads per month. He'll have discounts on the long-term deals. People that's been with him for years, like Stamps.com have been with him for 7 years. On it won't pay as much because he's a partner there, etc., etc. But Cash App has been with him for forever. Yeah. I think Squarespace as well, or like Wix or something. So what will happen? I don't think Rogan will be doing any more pre-roll podcast ads. I don't think he'll need to. Spotify might have even stipulated that he's not allowed to as a part of this deal. But what you will potentially start to see if you're not on Spotify Premium is that you will be targeted with dynamic ads put mid-roll into the podcast. And what this means is that we're moving from, I saw this analogy online, and this is kind of the bit I wanted to give over to you guys. I saw this analogy on the internet where someone said, podcasting at the moment feels like the internet in the early 2000s, before everything was syndicated, before there was Google targeting and tracking pixels and Facebook ads and retargeting and all this sort of stuff, where people were just saying, that looks like the sort of site or podcast that my audience listens to. Because being honest, like, Modern Wisdom is now venturing into this world. We've got every episode now has got a sold out pre-roll ad, and I'm very fortunate. Some of the partners I work with, Eleiko, Protein Works, Fitbook, Tailored Athlete, Reebok, like huge Surfshark VPN, big companies that are prepared to pay like great money to be there, but they're just looking at me and going, yeah, you look like, young people. That's what young people like, isn't it? Yeah, give me a bit of the young people. But that's not actually how targeting works. And that's not what advertisers want. Like, using a fucking discount code to track sales. Like, what would you say, Johnny, if I was like, the most sophisticated format we have here is that someone's got to enter this particular bit of text?
Well, the worst thing about it is that, like, you're relying on the person reading out an advert for you. Like, you're spending all this money, and then the way that's delivered is you basically send someone a text file that they have to read at the start of the podcast. You think, well, is that the...
That being said, I think that, so there's two types of ads. There's dynamic and there's baked in. So the baked in ads, the host-read pre-rolls, are more expensive. And that's because making the host put it in their own words converts better. So me saying, this is what I like about the Protein Works because I do. This is why I enjoy the Tailored Athlete. This is why Surfshark VPN gets you access to Netflix's library, or what I use it for, bridges the gap between...
it's not so jarring. It's not just a dude talking about W.H. Smith, just like, whoa, what's that? Yeah. The difficulty is that when someone's heard an advert, or even like a baked-in thing, as you said, and it's like, oh, remember to go to tim.blog/wealthfront/tim/50. You're like, I'm driving. I'm not going to remember that URL to go and...
Remembered it, though.
You did.
Whatever, I butchered it, but like, to come home and also not only remember the URL, but also remember that you even wanted to go and check that out. Whereas if you're on a platform, like you're on Instagram, you'll be interrupted by an advert and you'll just go and click on it straight away and probably leave the platform if it's something you're interested in.
So that Spotify might have not only a dynamic ad that gets put in at particular sections throughout the podcast, but then that ad might be matched with some sort of visual link.
That's what they do currently, because I think I'm the only one out of the three of us that's still on Spotify.
You're the only person in the world that doesn't pay for Spotify, yeah.
But you'll have a third-party app, I imagine, that blocks the advert.
Spotify.
So
Yep, there we go.
Do you know why I know that? It's because I have just finished the Life Hacks Volume 1 Ultimate Life Hacks list. Over 200 life hacks. Every life hack that we've ever featured. So anything that you do now, I know it. Because I've had to go back through and write a little description of what it is.
You get Release Radar, Yusef?
Yeah, it's good.
What is that?
Discover what's Release Radar.
It's a curated playlist of stuff that you might like.
What the hell?
Seriously? It's actually it's one of the most impressive things about machine learning and kind of algorithms that I've found, because like such a high proportion of the songs in Release Radar I really like. And it's not just like, oh, you like young people music, so I'll put some of the young people stuff in it. It's it's really carefully done.
Yeah, I'd like a podcast Release Radar, or like a Discover Weekly. But like Release Radar is like usually it's a selection. So if you think about, like, I know there's maybe a list of podcasts at the moment, people maybe only listen to a few. take it forward 5 years, people will probably be listening to even more podcasts. If you've got a curated list of like, here are the most popular releases from the podcasts you typically listen to in a list for you to just kind of work through as a playlist.
Well, the problem is, Johnny, I need you to put more gain on, bro, if that's all right. The problem is that at the moment, as a advertiser or even as a podcaster, like, I don't really know who listens to this show. I have an idea of who listens to this show based on the Instagram DMs. I can look at the YouTube demos because they go quite in depth because you got to sign up with your full account, gender, blah, 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 location. But really, you're just like shooting blind and just hoping that the content lands with people. And from a targeting perspective, that's obviously quite a big deal. So yeah, I just think I was originally kind of like, oh God, it's a big change. I don't listen to podcasts on Spotify. I prefer Apple Podcasts because it's native, because it's very, very smooth. Also, losing YouTube and losing the YouTube comments on episodes. Like, I don't comment ever, but I enjoy looking at what goes on and I like to hear how it lands with other people. But, you know, if Spotify see that and they're able to then create a platform which kind of reflects what's going on there, I guess that could be quite fun. Yeah.
The more I think about it, I think the thing I was most sad about was the video, the loss of video. My mic okay now, by the way?
Lovely.
The loss of, like, because I quite like, so for example, like the latest Elon Musk, Joe Rogan podcast, like I've watched the video, I haven't watched the whole thing, but I'm watching the video rather than listening to it. And for some reason, go on.
Does this mean that you can only watch the video on Spotify platform, or that you have to pay a premium Joe Rogan subscription to see?
No, so you will be able to watch or listen to Joe Rogan for free on Spotify, whether you have Spotify free or premium. However, I think if you don't have Spotify premium, you will be hit with dynamic mid-roll ads.
Sure. So I heard rumors that the whole podcast was going to become a premium one. But I don't think that would be in his interest.
In his announcement about it, he stipulates that's not what's happening.
Right. And it's I think from his perspective, like, he's getting 100 million. I don't think he's thought of this as a big, like, strategic move of the war between iTunes and Spotify and Netflix. I think he's just been like, 100 million.
Well, it's like, does that now exceed the value of what I would expect to gain from continuing? Because, like, at the moment, his revenue model is hinged on production, whereas it sounds like with Spotify, like, as long as you are exclusive to us and continue just enjoying, like, doing what you probably enjoy doing most in your life, then here's 100 million.
Well, regardless of what you listen on, I know, Yusef, you've kind of moved through a few different podcasting apps, but me and Johnny use Apple Podcasts. No matter what it is that you listen on now, you have to listen on Spotify. So it's quite a big signal from them to just say, look, this is the size of our penis. Our penis is so large, we've taken the biggest podcaster on the planet. Not only have we, because he wasn't even on Spotify. So if you go on to Spotify now and search Joe Rogan, he hasn't got a single episode except for the new trailer, which is like just a audio version of the announcement that he made on Instagram. And like, for them to say, not only...
So they've gone from 0 to exclusive.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and that is a huge move. Now, from my side, again, thinking about the fact that we're starting to slowly monetize this podcast and dealing with partners that I really love, like, Joe's just told the world how much value is in podcasting and podcasters. Like, every podcaster that's listening, whatever you're currently charging for your CPM, like, treble it. Because Rogan's just said that he's worth 100 million and made Spotify 5 billion in 2 days.
It's a very smart move from Spotify.
It's huge.
Very much.
So clever.
I wonder whether Apple did a counter bid, or if they were just like, oh, bollocks, like, we've just lost Joe.
I can't see them doing it, man. I don't think they care. I could see him going to YouTube, speaking to Google and saying, look, I'm potentially leaving. What do you want to do? But he keeps on getting censored on there. So, for instance, he can't stream other people's content. You know, he's always like, Jamie, don't put that up, we'll get taken. Or Jamie's always like, don't put that up, we'll get taken down and stuff like that.
Yeah, YouTube are brutal. And they just don't care, because even Joe Rogan is just such a small proportion of their total traffic. They're just like, whatever.
Well, it's people, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'm surprised about Apple not throwing their hat in that ring, because so I just got a year of Apple TV for free, and Johnny's mentioned how they've really, like, thrown in some really high profile actors and just plowed budget into their stuff to really try and, like, catch up with Netflix and with Amazon TV. What was it called? Amazon Prime TV or something. Like, so they're really aggressively diving into these spaces, and for them to just lose someone exclusively to Spotify when there's this constant, the back and forth court cases that Spotify and Apple have, where
they're
Spotify
not letting
wouldn't
them use
allow
Siri and stuff like that.
Yeah, so
because like, how do you listen to Spotify?
You have to open the app. You can't just be like,
on what though? An Apple device. So like, they don't care.
Yeah,
just, like when you own the infrastructure that
here.
Spotify needs, like it doesn't really matter what Spotify do. Like if they get Joe Rogan, like, oh, brilliant.
Cool.
And when you're making, what was the figure I sent you? 10 billion in whatever that stat was.
Yeah.
In AirPod sales,
mate.
Like, wrap your head around that figure.
So you're listening to Joe Rogan on Spotify on your Apple iPhone with your Apple AirPods. So they're just
thinking, fuck, Apple have really missed an opportunity here. Like,
and one day they could just be like, "Oh, sorry, Spotify's broken on Apple iPhones now. Oh, what a shame. Oh, you're gonna have to use."
Joe!
It's the guy sat in the rocking chair in the corner smoking a cigar while everyone else has an argument, isn't it? It's just like wins regardless.
Yeah, and then he just does this and just goes like that, and then his driver comes over, and then he leaves. Just puts his hand in the air, just one finger in the air, raises it, and then he departs, and everyone knows
when he leaves. The entire building and everyone else disappears.
Conversation's over. Yeah, exactly. Game is over. Okay, so that's my thoughts on Rogan, man. Like, I was real hesitant when it first happened, and I put a story up that got, I don't think I've ever had so many replies, like hundreds of replies to me being sad about Joe Rogan changing. Main reason I was sad was because he promised he'd never go platform exclusive on the show. I'm like, people's priorities change. I get that. I just hope that it doesn't damage the quality of the content, because he's my sort of podcasting role model. He's the person that I've taken the most inspiration from. He's who I listen to the most consistently across time, and I just don't want the show to be damaged. Like, people don't listen to him because of the fucking platform. They don't listen to him because of the ads. They listen to him because of the quality of the content. And if this enables him to put out better content, then I'm happy to pay the price of a little bit more friction of having to use Spotify.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of it's behavior change, isn't it, as a consumer of the information? Because like something I've noticed over the past 2 years is my YouTube usage has gone up. Like, I would never have really like sat and watched a YouTube video before. But there are things now that I'll happily sit and watch, like a 10, 15, 20-minute video.
What, like?
And I think I can see myself, I don't use Spotify for podcasting at the moment or listening to podcasts, but the barely day goes by when I don't use Spotify. Why not?
Like what's the tech friction that's stopping you from using?
It's just the like the UI. Like, it's not as easy to navigate between podcasts.
Do you know how to get onto podcasts on Spotify? There's it's in the arse end of your library, in the back end of the tabs. Like, so I want a dedicated Spotify podcasts app.
So I think this would be a good thing for the UI as well, because if people start flocking to it, there's going to be pressure on their development team to make it more user friendly. Because if considering how simple these apps are all to use, if you're still not wanting to use it because of that, they're going to have to make a change. Otherwise, people are going to
scale as well. Billions of people using these apps.
Imagine the support tickets.
Excuse me, mate, I can't get onto the Joe Rogan. Yeah, it doesn't even bear thinking about, does it?
I imagine does Apple have a support inbox?
They've just got a team of Irish geniuses that
Genii
that call you back.
They do. They love a phone call, don't they? They just want to get you off. I tell you what. So I'm going to start, as I keep on teasing out, and as Greg McEwen red pilled me on my own show about blogging. I'm going to start writing, and I spoke to Medium. So I went on, this is so fucking mad, right? I went on to Medium to register Chris Will X, just my social handle. I'm going to go on there. Went on, tried to register it. This username is not available. Holy fucking shit. Has someone taken no one else wants that. It's very specific. Went on, searched 404. I was like, hang on, so why is there a 404 error if I put medium.com/ChrisWillex in, emailed them, asked for a support ticket? Within 12 hours, they've come back to me and said, actually, because we're owned by Twitter, when we started Medium, we registered every verified Twitter's handle on Medium so that it was reserved for that person. I can see that your Twitter account is linked to your Medium account. Would you like me to change that handle over for you? I was like, fucking yes, bro. How cool is that?
So they're owned by Twitter.
Twitter bought Medium about 4 or 5 years ago.
I love when you just hear about like, oh yeah, Uber bought KFC and Twitter bought Medium and Facebook bought WhatsApp, and like, so the Telegram have bought or have created their own version of Medium, which is really interesting. But it's all obviously like blockchain verified and like super tech nerdy
Telegram's
stuff.
just for people who worry a lot, isn't it? Basically.
Have you been on
people
Signal?
who are doing naughty things.
Have you been on Signal?
Double speed voice messages. Oh, that's the perfect feature.
What did you say, Chris?
Signal. Have you been on Signal? So
That's like super secure, isn't it?
Signal's another step up from Telegram.
That's for like hitmen.
No. So that's Wicker.
Wicker.
Have you heard of Wicker? W-I-C-K. W-I-C-K-R. So you can't have messages that don't delete after 5 days on Wicker. You can't take screenshots. No one uses their real name. You have to have Face ID to even access the app. You can't turn it off. Like, mate, it's...
The thing is, like, what's the incentive of the person who's created that app? Like, let's make something where everyone puts their really top secret stuff in and we'll just tell them it gets deleted. Like, if I was going to harvest people's data, I'd go to that place. That's who I'd be.
It's what Edward Snowden suggested people use for messaging. You know, if you're in some war-torn country and you want to get your words out, organize a freedom rally
Send
or
an
whatever, you're
SOS.
supposed to do it on Wicker, yeah.
So if you were a government and you wanted to create an app that might warn you about uprisings, might it look something like Wicker?
Probably, yeah. probably would, yeah. I don't know, man. That Medium thing, I've started writing on Medium as well through the mobile app. And now this I know is total catastrophe, but I just wanted to see what the writing process was like. Man, it's so good. Like I'm going to guess both of you will have the app. Yeah?
No.
Not got the iPhone app, but
Okay.
we've got a Medium account.
It's worth just downloading it just for like to have a play around on your next break or whatever. And anyone that's got Medium on their phone, just press the thing in the middle at the bottom, which is like to create. The writing experience is so beautiful. It's simplest thing in the world. I was just like, you can just tell it's made by Twitter, you know?
But it's already a losing game if you're writing a blog post on your phone.
Yeah.
Like,
but if you were stuck on a plane or whatever like that.
Over here, like,
yeah, true. You're going to get
I've got a hook for a hand as well. So
man who look like Captain Hook.
Like Captain Hook.
You're going to get a plus-sized phone next time. Is that right? Did you say that, Seth? You were considering getting the bigger screen version?
Oh, no, so the smaller one?
Smaller one. That was it. No, but next time, did you not say you were going to upgrade and get the bigger one?
I'll get the iPhone 12, whatever that is. Just the one with the best camera. I don't care about screens. Well, I prefer a smaller screen. However, you know what's really annoying? Since I've gone from, this is such a first world problem. Like, this is like the epitome. iPhone 11, slightly bigger than iPhone 11 Pro. I gave my mum the iPhone 11, got the iPhone 11 Pro, which is this one, 3 cameras.
Oh, did you? I didn't know that.
So that's it.
How did you do that?
Just swapped it over. She needed a new phone, so
You bought a handset. You bought another handset.
Yeah, did like a 3-way switcheroo.
Okay.
But it's because it's like slightly smaller. It used to be that in scrub pockets, the iPhone 11 like pushes it out and keeps it stable. Whereas now, because it's just got a little bit of leeway, every time you bend over or flex your hips or anything, it falls out.
Rattling around.
And they're just covered in COVID, just all over the phone. You're like, oh, great.
That's awful. That is awful. So, right, okay, we've talked about Rogan. We've talked about how cool Medium is. What's been going on in your lives? What we catching up about?
I made a list of things that have happened.
You made a list of things. This is like life.
3 things that have happened in my life. No,
Life.
I'm joking.
101.
None of them are very interesting.
Well, that doesn't matter. I'm going to find them interesting.
Well, we'll see. We will see. I have been experimenting with morning pages. Has anybody ever done that before?
By Julia Cameron.
Like the method of morning pages.
You know who's on the podcast on Friday?
Is it the lady who
Julia
came up with
Cameron?
Morning Pages?
5 million books sold, translated into 140 languages. Martin Scorsese is the testimonial on the inside cover of her book. Julia
Well,
Cameron.
you can ask her about it. The Artist's Way.
The Artist's Way. That's where Morning Pages is from. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've bought it and I'm using it every day.
Chris, should we drop off? We'll have a chat about what he just said, and then we can come back.
Yeah, I don't think you're telling the truth.
I'm not. I just thought it might upset Chris because he bought me a really nice copy of the 6-minute diary, and it's just been under my table.
In my defense, and your defense, I didn't buy you it. They're a sponsor of the podcast, and I got it for free. So,
still, it was a heartfelt gift,
and it was probably a task for you inside the 6-minute diary to give Yusef a copy of the 6-minute diary.
He very clever, isn't it?
Started reading it and was like, "Oh, this is actually really well researched." Obviously, had like enough momentum to overcome 30 pages of inertia, but you don't start writing until page 60, and he hasn't got another amount of momentum to get in.
That's precisely.
I can imagine like you'll be sat there like. You know, like you look at it and go like
Dean, zoom in on his face, man.
You've got to be caught in the like. I think if you don't, it's like someone who watches a magician do a trick who just the entire time thinks it's fake.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter how good it is. Like, no, it was up your sleeve, it was under your shoe, and I think you just look at it as like it is a physical book that I have to use in the morning to write down 3 things that I'm happy about.
Yeah.
So this may affect your explicit rating, and if so, I'm very sorry. But my flatmate, a couple of years ago, was like, "Yusef, you come across as such a kind, lovely, compassionate, nice guy, but deep down, you're just an intolerant cunt." And I was like, "Yeah, I think I can't really disagree with that."
It's because it connects to it's the architecture of a SCOBY problem, isn't it?
The problem SCOB. Yeah. Okay, so Morning Pages, you've been doing
Johnny,
them. How have you
derailed you?
Creative Artist's Way, creative process? Are you feeling more creative?
So I wasn't using it for that reason. I'll tell you how I heard about it. So we interviewed a guy called Ali Abdal. I think I'm probably mispronouncing his name. He's a junior doctor with a huge YouTube channel. He does makes a lot of videos about kind of productivity and that sort of thing. He linked to a Tim Ferriss podcast where Tim Ferriss talks about Morning Pages as a style of journaling, and it's this thing that he recommends of like step 1, get everything like it's like monkey mind down on paper before you move into planning or like coming up with a plan. The theory being, if you sit down like journal or plan your day, but you're in like default setting in your OS, you'll just default to like negative planning, seeing the downsides of things, and being reactive rather than proactive. So to be honest, there's not very many resources. So I'm looking forward to this podcast. From Googling it and looking on YouTube, there's a lot of like fairly average, apart from Tim's video, fairly average guides on how to do it. But when you boil it down, you open a book and you just write whatever was kind of on your mind for 3 pages by hand. And Yusef's thinking, oh, this never know. But like I think there's an analogy of like, that's like saying, I'm stressed. So the way I'm going to deal with stress is like drive at 100 miles an hour and drink loads of coffee. Like the idea is you're slowing it down.
Yeah. So
by writing, you have to slow the process down. So you do that.
Amish approach, isn't it? It's the reason that the Amish are like fucking touted as productivity gurus.
Because they just have to write everything.
We move a little bit slower than most people, you know, and it's always filmed. There's always like cuts to a wide shot of them on the back of the cart behind the man riding on top of the horse. We like to move a little slower here. You're like, fucking hell, mate. Yeah, you talk slower as well.
So I've never seen that reference at all, Chris. So I just was wondering there whether you were okay.
It's in Cal Newport's book, man. It's in Cal Newport's book. Yeah.
Shows how much I pay attention. But yeah, so that, and then into kind of a second journaling practice, which would be like planning my day. I have been doing it long enough to I think say anything negative or positive about it, but it does feel like you're kind of letting a bit of the air out a little bit, you know, like you kind of do it and you're like, oh, That feels a bit better. I don't really know why, but like you kind of wake up and there's like stuff you want to just, and it kind of.
I think that's really cool. The only challenge is going to be that like handwriting 3 pages, even at like A5, must take what 15 minutes.
So, full disclosure, I've been doing like a page and a bit. So like I frankly like to write 3 pages, and maybe this is an error. To write 3 pages, I'd have to almost like sit and think of stuff to write about.
Yeah.
So a page and a half probably takes like 5-10 minutes in like a little moleskin thing.
Imagine how cool. I know it goes against the fact you got to write it by hand, but how cool would it be if you could just dictate it on your morning walk? You know, like as thoughts come up.
To be honest, that's probably just as good. But I think if you're like getting your laptop out and typing it, it does defeat the point a little bit, I think.
Well, you want to be, the point is that you just want low stimulus, focus on the thing that's going on. Yeah. Okay, that's a pretty cool thing to have started doing, man. And it's timely given that Julia's coming on the podcast at the end of this week. Man, this woman, 5 million books. She'll be by far the best-selling author I've ever had. Like, she pisses all over Robert Greene.
That is so mad.
I've only heard of it because of Tim Ferriss.
1992 it came out.
Right. No, well, that might be why.
Well, that's it.
She's done some volume, hasn't she?
Bro,
Christ.
1992. She's written 40 books, and like almost all of them, including the ones about prayer, are bestsellers. Mental. I messaged my mum about it this morning because mum's doing a lot more drawing. And I was like, Mum, I got this lady on, this Julia Cameron lady. And she used to go out with, or she was married to like some insane director as well, like some top level, not Martin Scorsese, some top level director as well. Anyway, cool. Scope, what have you been doing? Anything?
Morning stuff. So I've set an automator script on Mac to just keep Wi-Fi off until 10 a.m. So that means that when I wake up, Wi-Fi is already off. I don't need to do that. Admittedly, there's been a lot of emergencies recently where we've had to undo that.
Desperately tethering it to your phone.
Yeah, you're like, oh, but so it's on a similar vein of like creating a bit of space in the morning, because I think, and luckily we're in a privileged position to wake up and be so passionate about what we're doing that you are just like pulling at the reins to try and get started with what you're doing. But it's very easy then to just get pulled off into either the agenda of your urgent inbox or whatever is the first task to come up, and not actually to step back and look strategically at what you're doing. So
it feels like, just to interject with an analogy, on Family Guy where he keeps running into the chicken. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, and gets beaten up.
He always fights.
Well, he's like, that's the chicken behind the car, and then for 5 minutes there's a fight sequence that's really elaborate. That's how most of my days feel.
Every morning.
Like, start off with a plan, and the chicken just like.
I think particularly this year has been like that so much, and just because we've got more demands on us in general, and we're hiring out now. We're doing a lot more in terms of spreading that load. But I've realized that out of the productivity principles of capture, review, and do, I'm very good at capture and do, but terrible at review.
Yeah, me too.
And that's where things start to tank, because you end up doing a lot and capturing a lot, but it doesn't.
Well, the reason I think that you do that is because of the illusion of progress, right? You're like, capturing feels like doing something. Doing is doing something by definition, but reviewing just feels like, I can get by without reviewing, therefore I can do more doing.
That's precisely it. You think, if I don't review, then I can do more doing.
Exactly. Like, review's going to take me 90 minutes. I don't have time for that. When actually, what you don't have time for is 90 minutes of doing the wrong things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this hits the nail on the head. So I took Benjamin Hardy, PhD, the #1 writer on all of Medium, was on the podcast this week. Although the episode will come out in future because this is going to go out now. I apologize for the contra-logical way that podcast world works. But he gifted me his Genius blogging course, which is basically how do you get 400,000 email subscribers from just blogging, which he did in the space of 3 years. He's a monster.
That's crazy.
And I did the whole course in a day yesterday. And
wow.
Like the main thing that he does is write the headline, iterate it 30 times, write the subheadings as many as you can, then the article will fall into place. But for every minute that you spend planning, you save yourself 10 minutes of writing. And there's so many like implications about just life to do with that, you know? Like people that don't have a morning routine, they get up and think that they can crack on with their day more quickly because they haven't prepped themselves in the morning. It's like, no.
Well, it's the argument that people give against meditating. Like, I don't have time to meditate. But then it's like
this is the Dalai Lama quote, isn't it? You should sit for half an hour a day, or if you don't have time, you should sit for an hour.
Exactly.
You're just like, damn it. So that's been the big lesson. So since we last caught up. Yeah.
Why don't you just use so I imagine what you're trying to block is email mainly, or inbound communication.
Inbound communication.
Do you not find you need the internet for stuff?
Sometimes, but I think sometimes that's a lie that I'm telling myself. And so this does bring me on to the next thing, which is that there's a lot of stuff that I need to do now daily to keep up with the social media strategy that we're following at the minute that has to be done offline, because if it's done online, you end up with too many distractions and low output. Chris looks very confused.
I just thought that the whole concept of your guys' new social media strategy was that it was done in advance and then mostly automated.
Half and half.
What's it? Because I've seen you replying to stuff more. Like you replied to Tiago Forte saying you don't need to low key pretend that I'm one of your secret gurus or something. It was it was but just not a sort of tweet I would have thought that you guys had done. So are you trying to do more automation plus more actual viral organic
So I think you have to have a combination, because the platform wants you to play the game as it's intended to be played. And so if you are always doing tweet threads, it's not really how Twitter's intended to be. It's meant to be 140 characters. So, and if you're always scheduling stuff, again, it's you
don't get any. You're not interacting, are you? You're just broadcasting.
And if you're not, if you're taking people off platform a lot, it's also not ideal. So, it does need. I think I see it as the embers are the scheduled posts, and then you go in at strategic times of the day and you bulk respond, or you do Instagram stories or whatever. So, creating that content in bulk, I think, has to be done offline and just sit down in the same way that you would write a blog post, to write a lot of tweets. So that's been my main shift at the minute, and it seems to be working. The Propane Fitness Twitter, have a look at it on there. It's just quite a nice platform once you get out of the weird corners of where everyone's just flexing about their Lamborghinis and.
Have you tried unfollowing a big chunk of people?
Anyone that mentions coffee or cold showers in their tweets, or 7-figure,
that would be Johnny. That would be if you had a Twitter, Johnny.
Yeah, but it's precisely that I don't have a Twitter. I'm too busy drinking coffee and having cold showers. I think it's the point
about. Yeah.
Those are the real cold exposure motherfuckers. The ones who are so cold that they can't even type. Yes.
I'm just in my brainstem so often that I can't. Twitter's pointless.
Breathe into the brainstem.
When are you going to get Wim Hof on the podcast, Chris?
Oh, fuck knows, man. I met a girl who works at the School of Life. Shout out to Chanel. Met a girl who works at the School of Life, and their Christmas, she told me this story, man. Their Christmas party organized by Alain de Botton, who is, he's owner and CEO as well. I didn't realize he's everything to that company. He organized, and she was telling me, it's just a normal girl, not really into sort of self-development or whatever, and was just so he organized this Christmas party, and this guy turned up, and he had a beard, and he made us do loads of breathing. And I was like, hang on a second. Can I just get a photo up of a man with a beard who does some breathing, and can you tell me if that's him, please? And she's like, well, yes, you can do, but I fell asleep 3 minutes into this studio group work. So he got them all to lie down on yoga mats. It's maybe 20 people. And so I'm like, okay, can you text someone who didn't fall asleep, please, and ask them if the man that gave you small group coaching was Wim Hof. Texted them, reply came back, yes, it was. I was like, you fucking fell asleep to the number one breath coach on the planet. She's like, yeah. Well, I was a bit hungover and we were going on a night out that night and this, that, and the other. I was thinking, oh.
It's like someone's parked a Ferrari in your back garden and you're like, oh, that's a nice new garden shed. And you start like putting your spades in it and you're like, yeah, it's been an all right shed. It's a bit cramped, but you know, it does the job.
He's done a new, have you both seen the Vice documentary with him on? I imagine you both have.
Yeah, quite a while.
It was quite old.
Yeah.
He's done another one with a YouTube channel, a very well-known YouTube channel that are known for like discomfort and stuff. So he just puts them straight into an ice cold river with very little prep. So like normally it's like 3 days of breath work, building up your cold exposure. So it's like, this can be done with just the brain, and puts them straight into 10 minutes of an ice cold river in like the middle of Poland. One guy is clearly like right on the limit. He's like looking concerned, and Wim's just going, oh no.
So Wim's in with them, is he?
Wim's in with them, just not phased. And these guys who like find discomfort for a living and document it are struggling.
Jeez.
Like,
so mad. Have either of you guys heard of Connor Murphy?
Yes.
Murphy.
So he is a YouTuber that does a lot of quite vapid videos that are just him going around, a bit called like shirtless prank or whatever. So he's in a fleece with some padding, and then he's wearing glasses, and he's like goes to these groups of girls, and he's like, hey, so here's a picture of this guy. Like, would you pump or dump? Like, and they're like, oh, I would pump, and he's like, okay, well, he's actually here right now, and they're like, what? No, he's not. And he's like, yeah, if you just close your, and he takes off his glasses and he's topless. It's just loads of that, but just repeated. So it's quite a silly YouTube channel. And he'd been posting that stuff for ages, like prolific with it. And over the last 3 weeks, I fully recommend, if you haven't heard of this, go and check this out, because it's quite heartbreaking, really. But maybe 3 weeks ago, he's clearly had a psychotic break. Maybe taken ayahuasca based on some of the things that he said. And his videos have just changed entirely to enlightening my friend, enlightening my manager, enlightening my parents. And it's just a Zoom call of him crying, talking absolute nonsense. And like completely lost it. And like I think the guy needs help, but like people are commenting being like, not being able to take his shirt off in public during quarantine's really got to Connor these days. Like
maybe he doesn't need help. Maybe he is
the arbiter of wisdom. Yeah,
he is the help.
Possibly.
Have you considered that he might just be enlightening everyone with his tears?
Maybe.
Fuck, man. So, I mean, that's one of the problems of having a persona. Like, tons and tons of people have personas. It's fine. Like, if you want to go through your life and not do the introspective work and not deprogram all of the bits and pieces, like, have at it. But when you then have millions of YouTube subscribers or followers online, you leverage, you've like entered a position and then leveraged it 50, 100, 1,000, 10,000 times. And you realize the persona gets much, much bigger than it would have been. And then the observers and commenters on the downfall are also like significant, like, orders of magnitude bigger.
Oh, that's so true. It's leveraging your trade, isn't it? Like having a psychotic breakdown is bad enough, but doing it with like 1.7 million subscribers or whatever.
100 miles an hour.
Yeah. Oh, God. And his parents are just like, Connor, are you joking with us? Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, we're proud of you. And then his dad it's like a 2-hour long thing. And his dad just leaves halfway through.
Fuck, man.
He just leaves his camera on. Just an empty room.
Jesus. Psychedelics are one hell of a drug.
Pretty scary stuff.
The final boss in the last level, isn't it?
Yeah.
Johnny, you said you had 3 things.
What are the other
One
two?
of them was morning pages.
The other one's a shite, man.
Go on.
I just to raise something first. Did you both see that Elon Musk talk about being
red-pilled?
Well, I mean, I don't know what you mean by red-pilled.
Was it the cancel culture one?
No, the one where he just talks about how he's giving everything away.
Oh yeah, on Joe Rogan.
Giving away all his shit.
He's done Alex Becker.
Do you know who Alex Becker is, Chris?
He's the wokest empty house trillionaire.
He's got a YouTube channel where he's quite arrogant in the first segment of every video, but very aware of the fact that he's arrogant. And his latest video is like, can you believe that Elon Musk is trying to mimic me. Like, this is unacceptable. But anyway, so Elon Musk's giving everything away. I just thought that was interesting.
Do you know what his reason? Well, you'll know it, but Yusef, so this is the most Elon Musk thing that you could ever say about why. So Rogan's like, am I right in thinking that you're selling like all your cars except for a couple of Teslas, all your possessions, all your houses, selling everything that you own? And Musk's like, yes. So why is that? And he pauses for ages. I don't know whether it's because on the most recent Rogan, he's like feeling a little bit anxious. Last time he tanked his stock price. Maybe he's just in a weird space, like from work or whatever, but he's not flowing at the same rate he was last time with Rogan.
Elon mode 2.0.
Yeah. Well, even that was like a trickle. And this is just like a single drip once every 30 seconds. He's so slow, which is kind of nice. It's considered and cool and interesting if you want that, but it's not. For a lot of people, I doubt it would have been quite as engaging. But anyway, he's sort of, why are you selling all of your stuff? And he goes, well, I kind of see possessions as an attack vector.
That's a very Elon thing to say.
Yeah.
It's because he's just had R2D2 and he wants to make sure that he's
R3D2. That's what he wants next, isn't it?
That's his new son, isn't it?
Yeah. How he added like A12 or something onto the name, and that's related to a bomber or a jet or something, or a CIA secret project or something like that.
Yes, it was the predecessor to the Blackbird or whatever it was.
That's it.
The first iteration of the
How to get your
jet.
son bullied.
But
I suppose if you're going to have a jetpack anyway, and like a cyborg thing on your head,
you'll be the first one on Mars, so it won't matter if you get bullied on Earth. It's fine.
Yeah.
But when Joe asks him about, because Elon's like, oh, it's been really interesting having a kid because you watch them learn and you realize that actually like the neural net of an AI is really similar to a human brain and stuff like that. And you're like part of me thinks, Elon, that's a weird thing to say, mate. But at the other side, like I've been thinking about that conversation about AI since I listened to it, which was about a week ago or whenever it came out. Because Joe's like, why would you want to mimic an AI? I can't remember the exact question. It's like, why is an AI trying to be like a human? And then Elon's like, well, you take parts of it, but you don't exactly duplicate it. So like a plane doesn't fly like a bird, a submarine doesn't swim like a fish. You take like the underlying principle and make it more efficient in doing the thing that you're trying to make it do. I just think when I hear Elon Musk talk about AI, he's so comfortable with it. About what is, well, obviously it can.
But it's like hearing anyone that's an expert in anything, that he evidently has to do a lot of work to take himself from where he is to down to the level. Yeah, he nosedives by 40,000 feet in a desperate attempt to use language which is even slightly understandable to the cleverest people that are listening. And that's what I think a lot of the work is, that he's conscious of the fact that he could talk about like the synaptic properties of myelin wrapping around like blah, blah. But what he actually needs to say is it's kind of a little bit like the internet, or like it's a little bit like, like he needs to, everything's an analogy that normal people can understand.
He's just such a first principles guy.
He's a motherfucker, man. He's such a motherfucker. And the fact that you've been thinking about his conversation for this long shows that it's like, yeah, maybe if there's ever something that you hear at the time that you're like, it's fucking shit, and it sticks with you for a long time, that means that the person that said it is far smarter than you are, and you have then been forced to reflect on it.
Yeah, to him it's completely obvious. But then when you're like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. He's an absolute badass. Seth, have you been doing anything else? Any other stuff been happening? What's that? What you got in your hand?
A little net.
So
it's your sleeping things.
I got some
I saw
titanium earplugs.
I saw an Instagram ad for them this morning.
Did you? You've probably been retargeted I'm getting some really good Instagram adverts at the minute. Like they're all stuff that like that is bang on what I was like.
talking to Becca about this the other day.
Like, I'm coming round to your idea, Johnny, that like people are like, oh, I don't want Facebook knowing my. Whereas I'm like, well, actually, if they get me cool stuff like this,
you don't want shit advertised.
You do know that you two have the same Instagram.
Yeah, I know. That's what's most impressive about it.
But you're like, both of your interests are quite aligned. Like both of you would look at a pair of titanium sleeping earplugs and go, yeah.
The only difference between me and Johnny is one's paid and one's organic, but like Apart
I
from
thought
that,
one was Arab and one was Aryan. Is that not the difference?
well, yeah, one's Syrian dry roasted, and
I think
the other
one's
Carbonated.
One's paid, and the other one tries to use ad credit vouchers. That's I'm sorry. That was
Okay, so tell us,
Low
you've
blow.
got some earplugs. What are they?
So, I was saying on the last episode that my neighbors have the loudest sex at all times of day. The guy is some kind of stallion going at like 45 minutes at a time, just like ramming the headboard. I can only assume it's that. They might be doing like the Joe Wicks daily bash furniture around workout or something. But yeah, perfect. The titanium in the center is meant to cut out bass frequencies, and they are pretty silent.
Wow.
So, you know what worries me about stuff like that is that someone's going to sneak up on me in the middle of the night and I won't be able to hear them, which I know is ridiculous.
Well, luckily, I've got the shoehorn that you guys got me, and it's the perfect weapon. It's right next to the door.
It is a fucking weapon. Yeah,
It's got such a weighted tip as well.
I know. Dean's got the same one, man.
I bought an eye mask from Amazon that's got like a ring around it that sits on your eyes. So do either of you use an eye mask?
Bro, we covered this on a Life Hacks episode.
Did I talk about my eye mask?
Mm-hmm.
Did I?
Mm-hmm.
Shit.
Well, not that it's a bad thing. Tell us again. Some people want
Well,
to
it's just so normally an eye mask is like presses on your face, and when you try and open and close your eyes, it obviously the eye mask resists against the eyelid movement, so you become more aware of it. You're more likely to pull it off. This one has foam rings that lifts it away from your eyes, so your eyes are free, can move freely, and then you basically just feel like you're in a dark room. It's quite strange. It's very good.
I'd heard something to do with how much drier your eyes are when you have an eye mask which presses on your eyelids as well, because any moisture or whatever that's seeping through your eyelids will get picked up by. Yusef's gone and got. Is that the same one? Is that the exact one?
It's not exactly. It's very, very similar. Extremely similar.
Go and put it on for us, Yusef. Wow. That is.
So what's the light seepage like? Like, can you still see light probably around the bridge of your nose, I imagine?
If I move it down a bit, then 0.
Yeah.
That is peak virgin, isn't it?
Pretty complete. Well, you know what's also peak virgin?
Either virgin or long-term relationship.
Yeah, one of the two.
Nowhere in between.
Well, I mean, that's both me and you, that, isn't it? Look at that. Is that a velvet finish? Oh, he can't hear us.
Yeah, look at that. Whoa.
Oh, you can hear us. He's unplugged his headphones. You don't fuck about, man. So, yeah, and what's your sleep? Have you been alternating tracking sleep quality on Whoop? Eye mask, no eye mask.
Yeah, I had the eye mask thing on. Yeah, I've also been. Did I tell you about the 4 Sigmatic Reishi Elixir that I've been trying? I told you about that.
It's mushroom. It's something to do with if it's from 4 Sigmatic,
Elixir,
it's mushrooms.
set an alarm for 9 a.m.
Hey, Elixir.
Add this to my shopping list.
Hey there, Elixir. No, so it's. I mean, to be honest, it's lovely. It's like a hot chocolate, but it's got mushroom in. But you can't taste the mushroom. It just tastes like an earthy hot chocolate. That I think it affects. So I drink that and then I meditate and then I go to bed. I think it causes low level things to happen in my visual field when I'm meditating.
How soon after drinking it do you meditate?
10 minutes.
How long does something take to go from mouth to any area of the body which can absorb whatever's just gone into your mouth, Yusef?
Could be from instant to several hours.
It may not be that.
I just think unless it's literally going through the capillaries of your mouth, like sublingually, it seems unlikely that it's going to.
Completely agree. Completely agree. It's purely anecdotal. I think that might be what I've experienced.
I'm excited to try that, man. I've been fucksing around with some serious supplements recently. So Jigsaw Health, that were the company that Ben Greenfield advised for magnesium supplements, #1 magnesium supplement in America, like very expensive. Well, not very expensive. They're premium quality. It's like buying the best of anything, I suppose. When you compare it with My Protein's ZMA tablets or whatever, like anything's going to be expensive compared with that.
Which is exactly what I have.
Yeah. So this stuff, they have Mag SRT, which is slow release you take through the day. So you take 4 of those through the day, and then they have Mag Soothe on a nighttime, which is a pre-bed drink like a tart cherry sort of drink. Really, really nice. But the volume of magnesium that I'm getting in me is so high that I can't even track the actual amount on Whoop. So Whoop's maximum amount is 600 milligrams, and I'm well over that because of this amount.
Is it chelate, magnesium chelate?
I can't remember. I'm not sure.
It's look.
So that, and then they make this adrenal cocktail,
Yeah.
which is what's chelate mean? Is that the
It's
serious
just
shit?
the when you hear people, when you get into the world, the magnesium world, which is bigger than you'd think.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about a chelated form of magnesium as being the best for pre-sleep, which is what is in this product.
It's really legit. So that plus I've finally managed to find a good CBD brand, and the most recent stuff that I've got is 10,000 milligrams. So the concentration's insane. It's like the most viscous thing that you've ever seen. So that plus the Mag SRT plus this new Mag Soothe I've just been fucking it because why not? You got nothing else to do during lockdown. That and then adrenal cocktail on a morning. Also now doing NAD and NMN and resveratrol every day. Interesting impact on mood. Interesting impact on training output and other bits and pieces. But fuck knows what's going on, man. You know, like, fuck knows.
Yusef's just done a video about CBD.
Okay,
I have actually.
Hit us. Tell us what do you know about CBD?
Well received. Well, so the full breakdown's on the website, but it just basically
is it available on YouTube as well?
On YouTube. Yep.
On the website. That's just like
the website.
The video site.
The site that we have.
So the framing of the question, and actually every time we're asked about CBD, people are like, "Oh, can you talk to us about the benefits of CBD?" And you're like, "Well, even in the question, you framed it as like you wanting it to be beneficial," and ultimately, it's a neurotransmitter that is going to have a wide range of functions. So I just talked through the data on mood, sleep, anxiety, like all these kind of these kind of effects. And the answer is really that it has some effect for certain problems, but it's new. We don't know a massive amount about it, and personally, I think I've not had any personal experience with it, so I can't talk anecdotally. It's just some of the data on it. But to be honest, I recorded it over a year ago and just uploaded it because someone was asking me about it. So I think we'll all have to go back and watch the video to
check it.
Let me see if I can speak to the company that sent this out. It's basically each bottle is over 100. It's £110 a bottle of this stuff for like 20.
Is this the CBD or the magnesium?
CBD. The Mag Soothe's much more.
What do you get? Is it a relaxation benefit from the CBD?
Yeah. The problem is that because I received everything at the same time, adrenal cocktail, Mag SRT, Mag Soothe, and that like I have no way of identifying what's happening.
That pre-workout you gave me, Chris, like I've not even touched it because it's terrifying.
Which one?
The one from the protein?
Yeah, like blue raspberry.
That's a nootropic. That's not a pre-workout.
It
endless
ingredient list. Bloody hell! Yeah, that's something that I want to give away to Johnny's mate who just loves pre-workouts and that kind of thing. Because
I hope he's not. There's no beta-alanine in it. There's no nitric oxide in it. There's
only like 10 grams of caffeine. I mean, what's that going to do?
How many grams are there in it really? What's it? Because I imagine that's normally what you're most scared of is the caffeine.
It's the caffeine, but there's loads of stuff in there that you like, huperzine A and all this stuff that you just like stuff that's given pigeons seizures. And you're like, I think I'm all right with. Oh god!
What's most enjoyable is just imagining what it must be like to be burdened with this kind of knowledge that you have, that you know off the top of your head. You're like, look at the back of it. Because how it plays out in reality is you pick up the tub, you look at the back, and you go.
What you're thinking is
seizures. This would give a pigeon a seizure.
What was it you told us about the other day where you found out it was the main ingredient in Febreze?
This cyclical
cyclic dextrin.
Cyclic dextrins, yeah, because it just binds to all the smell. Something that cracked me up the other day is, so when you're in a hospital, obviously, like, you've got the standard doses of stuff that you would give, and like the upper end of those doses, you're like, oh, that's a bit scary. And sometimes, like, we had a guy in a cardiac arrhythmia the other day, and he had very low magnesium on his, like, serum magnesium on his previous blood test. And we were like, oh, we should give him some replacement. I think it needs to be IV, max dose. So I can't remember off the top of my head, something like 500 milligrams. And so I called the cardiology registrar. And I was like, I want to give some, is 500 milligrams okay? Like, he's quite low. And he was like, just slap in 2 grams. I'm like, 2 grams? Like, this is, and it says on like the formulary, like, do not give more than 500 milligrams. And you're like, okay, you're the expert. But when someone in their specialty is like, it'd be fine. Just give 4 times the maximum
in
amount.
that scenario, do you not think, like, fuck, I should record this. I should get this guy to sign something.
So I know someone that so Sadie, when she gets like dodgy advice from someone or they're dismissive, she's like, okay, no problem. I'll just document that. What's your full name and GMC number? Okay, thank you. And and then they're okay, and they'll.
Well, isn't it the case that, and this is something that keeps on being brought up by Ben Shapiro, which again, man, I'm not going to be a Ben Shapiro fan for the rest of my life. I'm not going to be like an avid listener, but fuck me, at the moment during COVID, he's such a great wealth of information. Bro, honestly. And the fact he speaks at 2 times speed means you don't need to put 2 times speed on, which is, also a good benefit. One of the things that he's talking about at the moment is this Dr. Fauci, who's the guy that's guiding most of the epidemiology for America, being criticized for the fact that he says that reopening is going to increase deaths. But there's perverse incentives going on here, because Dr. Fauci, if he says that doing something won't cause deaths and then some deaths happen, he fucked. Whereas if he always errs wildly on the side of caution, like, no one is ever going to string him up for saying that people shouldn't do something, then them not doing it doesn't cause, and the deaths don't occur,
That's a very good point. Like, if the economy collapses, you can be like, well, I was just given medical advice, so...
Well, also, that's the thing. That's the thing. The point is that virologists, epidemiologists, public health experts, their job is not to get the economy moving. Their job is to try and reduce the number of infections. They don't care about the collateral damage, because that's not their specialty. Like, the specialty for, who is it? Is it an economist or like, I guess, like an industry?
Yeah, well, and just like all the policymakers. Speaking of which, did you see Trump talk about injecting disinfectant?
Like bleach, basically,
Yeah, so funny.
People died because of that, I think.
That's been kind of spun a number of times. Shapiro, again, has gone through that in fairly big detail. And this is the real insidious thing that's happening. Most of the problems that were caused by Trump talking about either ingesting sunlight or this hydroxychloroquine stuff,
which is now shown to increase all-cause mortality because of cardiac arrhythmias.
All-cause mortalities are horrible.
So bad, isn't it?
All-cause, yeah.
But risk of death.
Yeah, but most of the problems that came about from that wasn't what he said. It was then the media taking what he said, extrapolating that out into worse things.
To the guy's face.
People reading what they'd said about what he'd said that wasn't what he'd said. And then when you take something which is on the knife edge of potentially being bad advice and like use nefarious language to then push it well into the territory of bad advice, it's like, that's your fault. That's not his fault. You don't get me wrong. The guy says some idiotic and reprehensible shit every so often, but you were the delivery mechanism for this particular fucking social virus.
The trouble is most media outlets are profit driven, and they just need circulation, views, and attention. So like their incentive is not necessarily to provide the best, like most balanced, most researched piece of information, which is why something like that, like to me, like that. I think one of the journalists said to Trump while he was saying it, like, people aren't tuning in to these briefings to be given like speculative, this might work. It's like basic advice that you should be getting, like advice that is applicable to everybody, reassuring you're on it, you're doing the right thing. Don't mention like, maybe, you're looking into that, aren't you? Bleach works, doesn't it? You're looking into that, aren't you? And then like spins to the scientist who's like, no, yeah. And then like, it's like, if you give the media some like a video file where they can snip it and make it look shit, like
they can do what they want.
It's still kind of his fault.
The line between that and just deep faking now is becoming increasingly more blurred.
Yeah,
I sometimes think that it's the
Yeah.
There's a couple of videos of they've labeled them as Karens, but I don't think any of them are actually called Karen. Going around like the States. One of them's like sat in a car and she's protesting that she shouldn't have to wear a mask because it makes her sad that she can't look at people's faces or something. And someone else was like going around telling people to take off their masks in the street because they're like, it's all just a conspiracy, and actually like it's wearing the mask is what's weakening us all and it's killing our antibodies. And you're just like, it's so interesting seeing like how this is playing out in different arse ends of America.
How unfortunate is it if you're called Karen?
At the
like
minute,
if you're
terrible.
listening to this and your name is Karen and you're not a mental conspiracy theorist, I want to talk to the manager please lady with like a mullet, I'm really sorry for you, because your name, Karen and Sharon, have both been taken and just run with to be the epitome of the I want to talk to the manager please lady.
Margaret as well, sadly.
Yeah, less so with Margaret, but Karen and Sharon.
There's a really good clip. I think it's from, I think one of you guys might have sent me it, where someone was talking about a patient who was complaining about not having their child vaccinated, and they were kicking up a fuss, and the doctor said to them, have you ever considered that the anti-vax movement was actually perpetuated by the Russians to weaken the health of the US population? And he said, like, the combination of these two contradicting paradigms in her head just exploded, and she was just like, had to go to
somewhere in the countryside in a huge barn, big farm. The big farmer's sat there going,
the big farmer, yeah, exactly.
The big farm.
Finally,
there's a guy on our Instagram who, you'll know who this is, Yusef, I imagine, as soon as I'm not going to say the name, but a lot of his content at the moment is very like, this is, sheep go bar. Like everybody's doing this because the government wants us to stay inside, and it's all part of a big, and like, it's just interesting when you see stuff like that. There's a lot of thought gone into that viewpoint. Like it's not just like, it doesn't
People
seem,
are sophisticated, man.
Doesn't seem like cast off, like, this just isn't important. Like, it's a very well formed, or it's a very well thought out view. And you think it, like, it's just a weird thing to think about.
When they're going as far as to say that the coronavirus doesn't exist, and like, I mean, obviously for me, it's a bit different because like, it's like, well, just come to work with me one day, and like, you can kind of solve that belief.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like the amount of it, but I think this is where emotion comes before rationality, and so you come to the conclusion first, and then with the emotion, and then the brain tries to create and form arguments to support that notion rather than the other way around. And we all do it to an extent, but this is like to the end game of, I don't like being told what to do. I think Big Pharma's behind it all. And I'm going to create and find evidence to support that.
Again, I think I've told you guys about this, that compensatory control mechanism that Matthew Syed had in the Times. Did I tell you this on the last episode? Okay, so this is like the 5th time I've dropped it on the podcast now, so sorry to everyone that's listened, but Jonny and Yusef obviously have a lot of content to absorb that doesn't include this podcast. Compensatory control is the tendency for people in periods of uncertainty to find meaning in things which have no meaning. So people that give an uncertain medical diagnosis are more likely to see patterns in meaningless static than those that aren't. And this is replicated across a number of different studies. And at the moment, Matthew Syed's thesis, hypothesis, is that people would much sooner presume that this global pandemic is due to the plans of some malign scientists than the chance mutation of a silly little microbe. And having that paradigm in your mind, compensatory control, explains so much. People just want to have a narrative. They want to personify what's going on. What's this? There's a reason behind this. It's like, no, sometimes shit stuff just happens because there is a chance that some shit stuff will happen. And this is the same, what you were talking about there, like people who have slightly bizarre worldviews that are incredibly sophisticated is what I saw when I did that evolution and dating episode with Rob Henderson. And this guy came in and gave this fucking thesis length comment on YouTube about it was when I did the one with Chelsea Ferguson from admireme.vip, this big long thing about how I was manipulating the female dating market by still being single at 32, and that Chelsea was setting a terrible example, all this stuff. It was like just crawled straight out of 4chan or Reddit or MGTOW.
You were manipulating the female dating market by being 32 and single.
Yeah, in that I've tied up a bunch of, he was presuming that I'd tied up a series of other girls' relationship availabilities throughout the period of my dating history up until now. That I'd taken time away from a man who would have potentially got a look in had I not have been with them.
That's ridiculous. That's assuming that the women have no free choice and can't decide what they want to do either. Well, and that if you want to be in a relationship with someone, that's what's happening.
Because Chris is such a hunk.
The bizarre thing is, I literally couldn't fucking pay for it in 2020. So like, that aside, what I was surprised by was how sophisticated it was. He's got all different acronyms, using all these different words. Oh, it's because of the sexual market value crossover point of the peaks state, this childhood epiphany. I'm like, there is an entire body of work underpinning what you're talking about at the moment, and the sophistication is scary. It's like the same thing with flat earthers. It was like they'd created ever increasingly elaborate models to try and work out why the thing was the thing that they thought it was, because it wasn't. So it needed, have you seen, I can't remember, it was before Copernicus's view about the heliocentric, geocentric version of the universe. And if you actually look at this, it's at the top of Chris Sparks' article that Jordan Ayres loves about increasing complexity. And if you look at the way that they presumed the universe, the solar system had to work, there were all of these crazy interweaving like looping orbits that everything had to explain the fact that sometimes planets pass back and forth in opposite directions. So the reason that happens is because when you move quicker than something circling around something else, you can actually see it go in a different direction. But they had from above this net image of like, what was that thing you used to have as a kid where you'd draw, not a scale extric. Do you know what I mean?
Gyroscope.
No.
Gyros?
Yes, but no.
It was like you put a gel pen on the end and you spin it around.
Yeah. You've just run out of battery, haven't you, Yusef?
Yeah, you need.
I have. Is it sounding?
It just when it's on your mic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. Anyway, let's call that as the end of the episode. We didn't even get onto Boris's announcement, but it was fucking shit. It was 45 minutes of confusing hyperbole that didn't really explain what was going on, and I don't want to
If you mustn't work, then you do, and if you shan't, then you can, and if you get the bus, then don't. But if you
go outside, don't go outside.
But stay outside for as long as you want, or as long as you need to, for unlimited time. But not if you have to work, and you shouldn't.
Go to work, but don't take public transport. I mean, take public transport, but wear a mask. Fuck off, man. Honestly. Anyway, boys, thank you so much. Where should people go? They want some macros, or they want to pivot to become an online coach?
propinfitness.com/modern wisdom if you want to become an online coach or transition existing services online, and then propinfitness.com/calculator if you'd like some macros.
Lovely. Everything will be linked in the show notes below. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed that little catch-up episode. I know that I do. These timely ones are really, really fun and cool. Got any questions, comments, or feedback? You know where to go. Just tag us on Twitter, give us a message or leave a comment on YouTube, whatever it might be. For now, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Speak soon.